So I bet you thought I would never get back to it, but here I am. I finally finished watching Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex Season 2 or Second Gig, whatever you want to call it. First of all, it looks amazing on Blu-ray, so did the first season, but this has some brilliant animation, especially when it comes to the fight choreography and the action sequences. And I mean, I guess I vaguely remember watching it on Adult Swim back in the day, but I haven't seen it since then. And I don't know how it looks streaming or anywhere else, but on Blu-ray, the animation looks fantastic, so definitely going to shout that out there. I reviewed the last season of Standalone Complex Season 1 like 4 months ago at this point, and my plan was to watch through the entirety of the Ghost in the Shell anime, of which there's many different continuities and different versions. I even had to write an entire list down so I can keep track of the series and watch it in order, so I have a lot more to go. Although watching a series takes up a lot more time than watching a movie, and I had a lot of things happen in between Season 1 and Season 2 that I was working on, that I just was watching other things and making other videos, and I didn't get around to it. But anyways, here I am. Well, the first thing to say is that, unfortunately, this is the last season of Standalone Complex, and that is a shame because this was a pretty fantastic anime from start to finish. There is a Standalone Complex movie that takes place after this, I do believe, so that'll be the next thing that I get to, but kind of a bummer that the series is done now, and I think a lot of people say, other than the original film, that Standalone Complex is kind of the crown jewel of Ghost in the Shell, and I can definitely see why. After having watched both seasons now, I can say that I do prefer Season 1 overall, but mostly it's because of the main overarching plot. So I kind of had a little bit of an opposite experience with Season 1 and Season 2, where Season 1, I really, really love the overarching Laughing Man storyline, and that was sort of my favorite thing about it. However, in Season 2, although I do like the stuff with the individual 11, I guess, standalone episodes, not to be ironic there, more singular character-focused episodes were my favorite of Season 2, as opposed to the overarching main storyline of the individual 11. So I kind of had a parallel experience with both seasons, although I do like all of it. For instance, my two favorite episodes of Season 2 are very character-focused. The first one is very early on. I think it might be Episode 2 or Episode 3, and it's really just about a random character that we've never seen before, and the whole episode has this vibe of Taxi Driver. It's just a guy thinking in his head about how society is right now and how he wants to change things and how everything irritates him and how he doesn't really fit in with society and what's happening in the world. And the whole episode felt very far removed from Ghost in the Shell, of our main characters of Section 9, until the very end, basically. But I really, really enjoyed that episode, and I like stuff like that. It actually reminded me, oddly enough, of something you would have seen in like Paranoia Agent or something like that. You know, just a character that's really going through it, you know? And my other favorite episode was actually the backstory of the character Saito, and how he got his one eye, how his one eye was shot out. He's playing a poker game, and he tells this backstory of how he met the Major. And again, to kind of relate it to film, the last episode kind of felt like Taxi Driver. That episode with Saito's backstory really felt like the finale of Full Metal Jacket, where it's like our team of characters and they're facing down one sniper and they need to figure out where he is and figure out what building to go into to take him down, and meanwhile people are just getting shot and like the situation is super dangerous. Turns out it was Saito that was the sniper, but that episode was great. So I would say a lot of episodes like that were actually my favorite of this season, but the overarching plot deals with yet another standalone complex, which I learned watching Season 1 is an actual event. There are all of these individual events that happen for their own individual reasons, but collectively are going after the same goal, or, you know, trying to accomplish the same thing. So it's not necessarily an organized act of terrorism. It's individual acts of terrorism that are all done by different people for different reasons, but are going towards the same goal, if I understand that correctly. So in this one, it is the individual 11 is what it's called. And this one was a little bit more difficult for me to understand than the Laughing Man incident. This one, there was a couple of different explanations as to what was going on. It was like a virus that was infecting people, you know, like the cybernetics inside of them, kind of compelling them to do things. But at the same time, it's explained that they are doing it of their own accord. It just sort of leads them in that direction, and they make their own decisions, and then they also like off themselves at the end of it. So there's a lot of different things going on with it. And I think one of the reasons I got confused with it is because I did start watching this series a couple of weeks ago. I got through like the first half of the series, and then I took a break and was doing other things and kind of got distracted, and then came back into it. And I think I kind of forgot some of the finer details of the first half of the season to help explain things that were happening in the second half. So that's a total me thing. I apologize for that. Ghost in the Shell is, of course, a series that has always been very philosophical and relates to a lot of things that have happened in history. Like they mentioned this May incident that happened in Japan that I wasn't too familiar with. And I also think that there was a lot of social commentary for the time period that this came out in the mid 2000s, because we're dealing with a lot of refugees of war and who to help and who's giving help, and with the assassination attempts of the people that are in charge. I think a lot of it was relating to not only the history of Japanese politics, but politics that was happening in the mid 2000s with everything going on with Iraq and the Middle East and all of that stuff. So I think there was a lot of social commentary there that was, I was picking up a bit of it, but I think a large majority of it was kind of lost on me. So maybe if there's anybody that's a huge fan of this series that can kind of tell me in the comments exactly, like specifically everything with the refugees that was happening, if it was directly correlating to something that Japan was dealing with at the time. What's really funny is that they refer to a lot of events in the past, which in the series that takes place far in the future, the past is a lot of the 2020s. So they reference like 2020, 2024, and all of these events that have happened, which I find really funny because even though it's different, the 2020s have been extremely chaotic overall. So it's funny that even though this series is referencing different big events that happened in the 2020s, they really aren't that far off with how insane it's made the world. But the one character I really, really loved, I think his name is Kuze. I don't think it's written on the back here, but he's basically the main antagonist. Not the real main antagonist, but sort of like the anti-hero of the season, I guess. Maybe I won't even go that far. But essentially, he has this history with the Major. And there's another great episode that does tie into the main overall plot with the Major as a child, right around the time that she got her cybernetic augmentations done, at the same time as this as the main antagonist character, and they actually knew each other when they were children. And I really like that episode in and of itself. Again, a lot of references to movies. They were making the cranes, which reminded me of Blade Runner, and I think Blade Runner and Ghost in the Shell have a lot of parallel themes going on. So I don't know if that was a deliberate choice with the origami or not, but regardless, that's what I picked up out of it. But I really like that episode too. And any episode really where we get further insight into a character's backstory, because as much as I love all of these characters doing their thing, with their job, with their profession that we're watching, I find it sometimes far more interesting to figure out who they were before they joined Section 9, like that episode with Saito that I was saying, and as well with the Major and Bato. And in the Ghost in the Shell movie, the second one, part 2, Innocence, we learn a lot of Togasa's, life outside of his job. So I really like learning about things like that as well with all of the characters. I think the final couple of episodes here had a wonderful climax. Again, I loved the Major and Kuze. Sorry, I keep forgetting, but I love the moment that they had together at the very end. And also when he faced Bato, that was a really cool fight sequence. And it's not often that you see Bato kind of get his ass kicked. So, that was like kind of always shocking when something like that happens. And the final decision with the touch comas and stuff. The touch comas, I kind of go back and forth on. Like, there was one episode in season 1 I really liked that centered around them. Sometimes they're a little bit much for me, but I think every series needs to have their kind of like more whimsical sort of comic relief type of characters. And Ghost in the Shell doesn't lend itself to that as well with its actual main characters, but the Tachikomas kind of handle that division of the series, if that makes sense. However, they do very important things with them beyond just having them be like a fun sort of useful comic relief or tool that the characters have. And I think in the final episodes of season 2, they do some really important stuff, and it makes you really respect them as a valuable part of the team, the same as any of the other characters. Anyways, I did have a really good time with Second Gig. I just didn't like it quite as much as the first season, but I do like it quite a bit. And beyond that, we have the rest of the Ghost in the Shell anime. So there is, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, anybody out there that knows way more than I do about this, there is a standalone complex movie that kind of finishes off this universe continuity. And then there is the Ghost in the Shell Arise series, which I thought was movies and a series, but I did a little bit of research and I guessed that there's 2 different edits. Like there's a series of movies, and then it was also re-edited into a series with episodes. So what is the better version of the Arise series to watch? I don't know. There is the live action movie, which I have seen before, but I'll re-review it with better context from watching the rest of the Ghost in the Shell anime. And then there was a final like CG anime that came out not too long ago to get to. So there's still a bunch of different interpretations and different versions of Ghost in the Shell, but I'm somehow determined to get through all of them. So join me on my journey. Hopefully it won't be 4 months until I upload the next video. But then again, you'll never know what happens. Keep things spontaneous on this channel. Anyways, Ghost in the Shell Season 2, or Standalone Complex Season 2, Second Gig. Tell me what you guys think about it down below. Do you like it more than Season 1, less than Season 1? Overall, as a series, Standalone Complex is great. Like I said, when it comes to just the pure presentation, the animation, and how well it holds up to this day, I think it really, really does. If it's something that you haven't seen before, I think that it stands up to any new anime coming out today. Not that I watch that many, but anyways, thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it. Give the video a thumbs up and a comment to help it out in the algorithm. And if you want to support the channel on a deeper level, I do have Patreon channel memberships and all the various social media links where you can follow me down below. If you haven't seen my reviews for Season 1 or the first 2 Ghost in the Shell movies, go to my anime review playlist. Other than that, guys, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll talk to you next time.